Here's Michelle Rowe.
Well, we have slowdowns on Legacy Parkway. This is going both directions at this point due to lane restrictions going between Centerville and Farmington. Also, if you're on I-15 making your way into Nephi, that's also reduced lane restrictions. Get your photos with Santa at Jordan Landing Shopping Center this holiday season, located in the Entertainment Plaza across from Cinemark. Check out jordanlanding.com for hours and additional details. I'm Michelle Rowe in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. A quick storm moves through central and southern Utah tonight. Then a cold front moves through northern Utah tomorrow. We'll see snow in the mountains and rain and snow in the valleys by Saturday night. But this should also improve our air quality. The outlook for Christmas Day is cool and partly cloudy. Right now, we're at 52 degrees, partly cloudy skies. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, the biggest story of the week has been the Colorado Supreme Court voting to remove former President Donald Trump from the state ballot for the primary. Democrats cheered the news as good for democracy and good for their chances in 2024, where President Biden continues to trail the former president in a potential head-to-head matchup in the polls. But Democrats and moderate Republicans need to think again about this case and who it really hurts, who it really helps. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Always concerning when our politics spends most of its time in the courts. And we are also following, just within the last few moments, the Supreme Court has announced that it won't expedite the appeal in the Trump immunity dispute case. So that will go, rather than straight in an expedited fashion to the Supreme Court, it will still go through the Court of Appeals, the D.C. Circuit. So we'll break all of that down. You can stay tuned for reaction to that as the afternoon rolls on here on KSL News Radio. We want to stick with the Colorado case. It was an interesting one that has come out. There's been a number of other states who have tried to remove the former president from the ballot using the 14th Amendment. Clause 3 of that, and others were unsuccessful. This one was a split decision, 4-3, and it is also an interesting 4-3 decision because of the who actually appointed those judges to sit on that bench. And so we want to break all of this down and look at the winners, the losers of where that is, and then, of course, what comes next will be the big test. Sarah Isgur from the Dispatch joined us yesterday. She said that the Supreme Court will likely take up this case before January the 4th, which is when things have to be moved along next. And when it's a close call like this, the court is almost always going to choose to decide with self-government and the people making decisions when it comes to elections as opposed to the court. Here's the way Sarah Isgur described it.
If it's a close legal call, like a 4-3 decision would certainly make it look like, then it should probably, the tie goes to the democratic process, right? The argument is that the 14th Amendment Section 3 is an anti-democratic measure, but that's what the Constitution is, right? We have sort of democratic rule with anti-democratic reserve. Like the First Amendment is anti-democratic. We don't let people vote on whether you should get to say your unpopular opinions. But when it's a close call, certainly we should side on the self-government side and the popular vote.
I love the way Sarah framed that. That this Constitution that we have is about democracy and democratic rule with a whole lot of anti-democratic reserves in it, like the First Amendment. We don't take a vote. We don't allow a popular vote to determine what is actually going to happen with the First Amendment. So the point that Sarah was really making there is that if it's a close decision, then we should always err on the side of self-government making those decisions. And I think that's an important part of that process. I also think it was really interesting to note on this particular case, so it was a 4-3 decision by the Colorado Supreme Court. All 7 of those justices were appointed to the Colorado Supreme Court by governors who were Democrats. So all 7 of them were Democrats. And even with that, if you want to play the real crass politics of it all, even with all 7 of them being appointed by Democrats, it was a 4-3 decision, which means there's clearly disagreement in terms of the interpretation of what was happening and what was going on. I think that's an important thing to keep in mind as we process this and move this thing forward. I want to go to one other comment that Sarah Isgard made to us yesterday, that the case has some good news, bad news components to it, depending on where you fall on the political spectrum. She had some unique perspective in terms of the other candidates running for the Republican nomination for president. Take a listen.
This is the worst possible timing for Nikki Haley. She's starting to surge nationally. She was moving up into, the low 20s in New Hampshire, which was really going to be her place to stop Donald Trump if she was going to be able to stop Donald Trump in New Hampshire. And this is going to gut all of her momentum on a few fronts. One, it certainly moves the attention to Donald Trump in just a huge, huge way where she's going to have trouble breaking through that conversation at all. But also, it's going to make a lot of Republican voters feel like Democrats, rightly or wrongly, are trying to prevent Joe Biden from even having to run against Donald Trump. Therefore, he must be the biggest threat. Therefore, we must vote for him.
All right, so as we break this out just a little bit, I think Sarah's right in terms of the negative impact on Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley has clearly been rising. In fact, there was one poll coming out of New Hampshire today that actually had her within 4 points of the former president for the New Hampshire primary, which follows Iowa. And clearly this will shift that focus back to the former president, which is good. This is more that will fit into the grievance policy and grievance posturing that former President Donald Trump plays into. It's us against them. It's I'm here to fight for the little guy. Someone else is trying to steal this. So all of that really plays in there at a time when Nikki Haley has, again, lover or hater or anywhere in between, she has been on the rise. She has built some momentum in her organization, expected to do well in Iowa, and again, is doing very well in New Hampshire in moving that forward, and some of the other candidates continue to stumble. We'll talk about that coming up at 1:20, as we do every Friday when we do our Inside Sources look at inside presidential politics. I also want to look at just at some of the other components in terms of this, winners and losers, as this moves along. I do think everyone has to be pretty careful about this because this does give the former president some potential wind at his back. He's been kind of going into the teeth of the headwinds on a few things. But now if you combine this, and my prediction is that this will go to the Supreme Court swiftly and they'll move on it because the Supreme Court does not want to be the ones deciding elections. They prefer to stay out of that. So if there's any question at all, they're going to leave it in the hands of the voters. I do think it's interesting that many Democrats have suddenly found some religion in federalism. In other words, they're saying, "Oh, good, this is let's get it back to the states. Let's let the states decide," because Colorado decided the way they liked. Important to note, again, regardless of how you feel about the former president or any of these things, it is important to note there have been 4 other cases, exact same cases, in other states that were taken down, that did not go through, that the ruling was not the way Colorado is. So Colorado is the outlier at the moment, part of the reason it's getting some attention. But again, you have to be careful what you wish for, because if this is what you wish, it is definitely going to aid and help former President Trump at a time when he needs a little bounce. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out and how that all moves forward. It's always that case. Careful what you wish for because you just might get it, and it may not be what you think it is. And so the more important thing is let's get the right thing done. Let's keep things in the hands of the voters whenever, wherever possible. I think that's an important part of this whole process, and I expect the Supreme Court will do that, and I think the former president will be on the ballot in Colorado one way or another. We'll keep our eye on the other elements of the former president's issues in the judiciary system of this country. I think those are the bigger issues that will be coming up in March, and those are the ones I think everyone needs to keep their eye on. We'll go ahead and step aside for a quick break. When we come back, we'll do our weekly Inside Sources look inside presidential politics. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. The air outside is frightful.
My sources tell me we're supposed to have some mountains, and I can't even see them.
And holiday travel not so delightful.
We checked with the international airport. Just over a dozen flights have been delayed.
So if you have places to go slow, go slow, go slow. Traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s, mornings and afternoons.
We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Hey, I came as fast as I could. What's wrong?
Everything's okay. I just need you to know I'm glowing up.
You just texted SOS Get Here Now.
And I stand by that because I switched to Cricket and got the all-new Motorola Razr. I have entered my flip era, and I am glowing up.
I'm gonna go back home.
I support that.
Switch to Cricket and get the all-new Motorola Razr for $199.99. Smile, you're on Cricket.
Must open a new line on a $60 a month voice plan. First month service charge and tax to its sale. Fees, terms, and restrictions apply. See cricketwireless.com for details.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article or sensitive personal information about your family? Search engines don't always get it right. For right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. One of the most trusted names in online reputation repair, Reputation Defender has been fixing people's search results for over 15 years. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, helping you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. Take control with Reputation Defender. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 to speak to an expert. That's 800-401-6681.
Hi, this is Doug Wright with yet another great experiment you can try right there at home. I want you to take 4 bags of water softener salt. Lift 3 of the bags with one hand, good luck on that, and 1 bag with your other hand. Now, if you're like most people, you'll probably find that 3 bags of salt weigh about 3 times as much as 1 bag of salt. And that's an important thing to keep in mind when you're shopping for a water softener. You see, Kinetico of Utah, an authorized Kinetico dealer, their water softeners are so well designed, they use only 1 bag of salt for every 3 that other water softeners use. Now, I can't speak for you, but I'm not a fan of lower back pain, and as our little experiment has hopefully demonstrated, carrying that 1 bag of salt, it's a lot easier on your back than carrying 3. That's just one of the many reasons you should look into water softeners from Kinetico of Utah, an authorized Kinetico dealer. To learn more, call Kinetico of Utah, 801-576-8600, or go to softwaterutah.com.
Held over due to popular demand today through Sunday. Save thousands on hot tubs and swim spas. It's a major manufacturer's liquidation of hundreds of in-stock spas. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Hot tubs discounted 40 to 80% to the lowest possible price, starting at $29.99. Free professional delivery. Take possession tomorrow, next week, next month, or next season. The Hot Tub and Swim Spa Sale. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Shop over a dozen models of swim spas from 11 feet to over 19 feet. Swim spas offer low-impact exercise, active family fun, unsurpassed relaxation, and installation in one day. The Hot Tub and Swim Spa Sale. Everything must go. Free parking, free admission. You can't afford to miss this. It's a major manufacturer's liquidation of hundreds of in-stock spas. Today, noon to 8. Saturday, 10 to 8. Sunday, 10 to 6. The Hot Tub and Swim Spa Sale. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Salt Lake City police arrested 14 people in sweeps along the Jordan River Trail. Second, the latest scam to show up in your text messages says you're not registered to vote. And third, the United Nations resolution calling for increased aid to civilians in Gaza may not be enough to stop the fighting. Right now, 52 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Inside Sources, an inside look at 2024 presidential politics.
Well, welcome to our weekly focus and special here on Inside Sources, where we provide you the inside look at presidential politics leading up to the big election year in 2024. We are marching our way towards January 15th, where it all gets underway in Iowa. All things point to Iowa. Candidates are focusing their efforts to those caucus goers. That's the real test. It's not just casting a ballot in Iowa. You got to show up in caucus. Could take you a few hours on a very cold night in Iowa, but that's how they do it. And so that's where the focus is as we move forward, less than a month away. So let's take a look at the lay of the land on the Republican side. Last week, we really focused on the Democratic side, what was happening with the president, and also in some of the independent spaces there. Nikki Haley has clearly been the campaign on the rise and with a little bit of juice and momentum there, and that has also made her the target of many attack ads. In responding to those attack ads from both former President Trump and Governor Ron DeSantis' campaign, Nikki Haley said yesterday at a town hall that if you have to lie, you don't deserve to win.
So this is silly season. You're going to see a lot of stuff out there. If there's anything, ask me. I will tell you. But right now, I'll say this. If candidates have to lie to win, they don't deserve to win.
It is silly season in Iowa, and every campaign goes through a silly season. And you get all kinds of wild accusations and crazy statements that go out. And I've seen this across the political spectrum. And it's a little appalling to me what some candidates and what some campaigns are willing to do just to win an election. And so I always do warn people about silly season. If it sounds crazy, it probably is. And the best place to go is to the source. Don't trust what somebody said. Somebody said they thought somebody say about somebody else. That's good advice just in your personal life as well, not just for who you're going to vote for. Because silly season is real, and a lot of those things just get so distorted, so out of context. I thought it was interesting earlier this week, Ron DeSantis reflected on the nature of leadership and his vision of leadership at another town hall that also took place in Iowa.
I see all this stuff through the lens of being a leader and leadership, because you can get elected to office, particularly a governor or president, executive leadership position. You got to be right on the issues. It matters. But being right on the issues is not enough. You got to be able to lead, you got to be able to articulate that vision, and you have to deliver these results. Leadership is about doing what's right when it's not easy. Anyone can lead when the wind's at your back. But in this day and age, anything worth fighting for, you are going to have resistance. And you got to be able to overcome that to be able to get the job done.
I thought that was a really interesting. It was almost as if Ron DeSantis was talking to himself. Because the biggest challenge of his campaign has not necessarily been where he is on particular issues that matter to Republican primary voters. It's been his ability or inability to articulate that vision and connect personally with relationships with voters. And so as I listened to that particular clip of Ron DeSantis, I thought, well, I think he's having a conversation with himself because he needs to do that better if he's going to right the ship. His campaign has struggled and wobbled, and most of it has been an inability to articulate the vision and connect the dots between the issues that matter and the kind of results and vision you have in terms of how to get there. I found that very fascinating internal dialogue going on outside with Ron DeSantis. Now, Chris Christie is campaigning hard in New Hampshire. That's really where he has staked his claim and where his campaign will rise or fall. He gave his reaction immediately after learning the ruling from the Colorado court barring Trump from the primary ballot to the state.
I do not believe Donald Trump should be prevented from being president of the United States by any court. I think he should be prevented from being president of the United States by the voters of this country. I think this is probably premature and jumping ahead of it. And I think it would cause a lot of anger in this country if people had the choice taken away from them. I would rather have them make the choice that he doesn't deserve it.
So that's Chris Christie. Again, always interesting in presidential politics. You never know how things are going to shift. Chris Christie has been adamant. He has been incessant in his criticism of the former president and believing that he's not fit for office, that he shouldn't be the Republican nominee. And yet here was Chris Christie saying, but the court shouldn't decide that. The people should decide that. So here's someone, and I actually give Chris Christie credit for that, saying, look, I'm against the former president. I don't think he should be the nominee under any circumstance. I think it's bad for the country. He has laid that out in quadruplicate every day for the last year. And he said the ruling by the Colorado Supreme Court is premature, is wrong, and is not good for the process of democracy. Always interesting. Remember, we always say that understanding the behavior of someone running for president is often like trying to smell the color 7. And perhaps in the ultimate attempt to smell the color 7, we turn our attention to Vivek Ramaswamy. And he actually came out after the Colorado ruling released a campaign video saying that he would withdraw his name from the GOP ballot in the state of Colorado if the former president was not reinstated on the ballot. That is an interesting thing for someone who is polling inside the margin of error. In other words, the margin of error is about 3 to 4%. And Vivek Ramaswamy is about 3 to 4%. He could be at 0. He could actually be at -1 polling-wise on a technicality. But him saying, Vivek Ramaswamy saying, I'm going to take my name off the ballot if you don't put President Trump's name back on the ballot, is sort of like someone handing you the sleeves off of their vest. It costs Vivek Ramaswamy nothing, 0, to say, I'm going to take my name off the ballot. He's polling inside the margin of error. But he is trying to make a political statement. He is trying to get attention. He is trying to do anything he can to stir up some vision of what he wants to do in his particular campaign. So an interesting political ploy in this one. I don't think there's a whole lot of substance underneath it. But again, Vivek Ramaswamy handing the world his sleeves off of his vest, saying, take my name off the Colorado ballot unless you put President Trump's back on. I'm out. And he also challenged all the other candidates to do the same. And I think there's a snowball's chance in Guam that you'll have Chris Christie, Ron DeSantis, and Nikki Haley take their names off the Colorado ballot. So that's all we have in the Smell the Color 7 department. Earlier this week, I spoke with Dave Drucker, a friend of the show, senior writer at the Dispatch. He spoke on the developing troubles of the Ron DeSantis campaign and the split between his super PAC, the Never Back Down super PAC, supporting DeSantis, and the governor's campaign itself.
The governor received the endorsement of Kim Reynolds, the very popular Republican governor of Iowa. He received the endorsement of Bob Vander Plaats, probably say the state's top evangelical activist. And so they could have focused on those great endorsements, the fact that they had probably the best voter turnout operation in a state where it really matters. But rather than that, they decided to hold a circular firing squad where people from the campaign side and people on the super PAC side decided to squabble with each other, complain about each other. And so now, we'll see if after all of that, the governor can pull off what would be a really big upset.
So that was Dave Drucker breaking that down, and that is the big challenge for the DeSantis campaign. They are having a circular firing squad internally, which is often the case in campaigns that are going south. It's always that circular firing squad that really takes you into that vicious cycle and downward death spiral. And I think that's where the DeSantis campaign is at the moment. Now, a little bit of hope for Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley will appear in back-to-back CNN town halls in Iowa just 11 days before the Iowa caucuses. The two candidates will appear on CNN on January the 4th, so that will be an important conversation. And there'll be a host of other things that will be bubbling up between now and that important January 15th launch to 2024, and the campaign for president will be in full swing. Of course, President Biden continues to be very comfortable on his path to reclaim the Democratic nomination. And then, of course, we've got a whole host of things to look at in the movable middle with a potential third-party bid coming up around Super Tuesday. All right, that wraps it up for our Inside Sources, Inside Look at Presidential Politics. We'll step aside for bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour, a special holiday banquet being held for people experiencing homelessness. KSL News Radio's Britt Johnson has more.
It's a beautiful meal with all the fixings, including a Christmas honey ham. People will receive a gift and warm winter clothes, even a professional haircut if they'd like. Ogden Rescue Mission Executive Director Chris Crosswhite says they just want everyone to have a special holiday.
It's very, very difficult for our homeless community to sit on a street corner and simply watch the general population celebrating a very meaningful time of year.
The banquet is happening today at the Rescue Mission of Salt Lake and tomorrow at the Ogden Rescue Mission. Britt Johnson, KSL News Radio.
Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Mortgage rates around the country still going down. ABC's Brian Clark has more.
For the second week in a row, the rate for a 30-year fixed mortgage was below 7%.
High rates, along with limited inventory, have kept many home buyers on the sidelines, but things could be changing. The decrease in rates comes as new home construction has reached its highest point since May.
And your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up but just barely on the day, only 7 points. The NASDAQ is up 39, the S&P 500 10 points ahead. And our KSL weather looks like we'll get a little bit of rain and snow over the weekend. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
Start your days with knowledgeable, friendly voices telling you about the latest news and weather out there.
Hi, this is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
In the business of waking you up each morning from 5 to 9.
On KSL News Radio.
You can't expect a policeman to unclog your drain. You shouldn't ask a teacher to change your oil. And you wouldn't want a fireman to clean your teeth. So why would we let politicians take over our internet service? That's just not what they do. Experience proves government-run networks mean waste, corruption, and failure. One example, called Utopia, promised to provide internet service in 16 cities within a few years. But over 20 years and hundreds of millions of dollars later, a better name would be dystopia. They say it's almost complete. We say stop wasting our money. Go to nogovinternet.com and tell lawmakers enough is enough. Local tax dollars are precious, and public employees have plenty to do already. Don't let politicians mess with our internet. Paid for by nogovinternet.com, a project of Domestic Policy Caucus.
At Intermountain Primary Children's Hospital, we made a bold promise to build the nation's model health system for children. Join us in realizing our vision for the future of pediatric care. So together, we can expand primary children's impact and ensure every child has access to the right care at the right place at the right time. For a century, Primary Children's has kept the child first and always. Help us continue to do so for the next 100 years. To get involved, visit primarypromise.org.
In 400 AD, a forgotten time in ancient America, warrior prophet Moroni must preserve the history of his fallen nation while being hunted by a ruthless tyrant.
Where is the brave general now?
From Freestyle Releasing and Great Scott Entertainment comes
The memory of my God,
The Oath.
my faith and my freedom, my wife and my son.
The Oath, now playing in theaters. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. More information is available at oathmovie.com.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Emergency traffic now brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. And here's Michelle Rowe.
Well, this is emergency traffic just south of Pleasant Grove Boulevard. Drivers are trying to get onto the freeway to go southbound on I-15. You are merging down to one entrance lane on the freeway, and then the two right lanes are also blocked due to this crash. So you're going to be backed up clear into almost American Fork at this point. So if you could use an alternate or delay your travel, you would be wise to do so. Fed Up Kitchen is Utah's premier healthy meal prep service. Save time, money, and get results with our delicious meals made fresh daily. Right now, save 20% on your first order. Use promo code KSL at fedupkitchen.com. I'm Michelle Rowe in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. A quick storm moves through central and southern Utah tonight. Then a cold front moves through northern Utah tomorrow. We'll see snow in the mountains, some rain and snow in the valleys by Saturday night. This should also improve our air quality, and the outlook for Christmas Day, cool and partly cloudy. And right now, partly cloudy, 52 degrees in Salt Lake. I'm Dan Bomis, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
All week long, we've been revisiting some of my favorite conversations from 2023, interviews where I learned something, was surprised by something, or was inspired. And we're going to continue that today. One voice that I always look to on the difficult issues of the day belongs to none other than George Will, award-winning columnist from the Washington Post. I asked him as he joined us on Inside Sources if there are any honest brokers left in politics today. Here's what he had to say.
There are brokers in the sense that there are people on both sides of the aisle who want to reach across the aisle. The trouble is there are about maybe 10 on each side. And that leads, since there are 535 people in Congress, these are leaders with no followers at this point. Just take the question of Ukraine. I'm convinced that the softening of support among Republicans for our aid to Ukraine is simply because Biden's for it. That's enough to disqualify the whole project in the eyes of some people. That's how bad the partisanship is today.
Yeah, and that is such a big part of it. If it's just based on what jersey you're wearing or what election cycle we're in or leaning towards, that becomes a big part of the problem. Anything happening there in D.C. or any of the things that you're watching, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's kind of the budget battle and the debt ceiling that we're rolling towards, any areas of light in any of those spaces?
Well, this is a little premature to get excited about this, but Senator Cassidy of Louisiana and King of Maine are seriously working on a radical in the best sense, that is, new thinking about how to fund Social Security. Everybody knows that Social Security, as currently configured, is unsustainable. Everybody knows that in about 5 years, the Social Security Trust Fund, which itself is a bookkeeping fiction, is going to be exhausted. And under current law, that would mean about a 20% reduction in benefits across the board. Everybody also knows that won't happen. Congress simply wouldn't put up with it since the elderly are A, numerous, and B, diligent voters. So something has to be done to make the system more sustainable, some mixture of perhaps tax increases and benefit cuts, if you count raising the eligibility age for Social Security a cut. And they're working on it. They're working on imaginative ways to make the funds flowing into Social Security grow faster. It's complicated. They're not ready to announce it yet, but these are serious people with a serious problem coming up with serious ideas. So it's going on, but it's not. It's hard for them to get noticed, and right at this point, they're not that eager to be noticed.
Right.
When all the attention goes to the political ambulance chasers who are out in front of the cameras every day on whatever has excited the left-wing base of the Democratic Party or the right-wing base of the Republican Party.
Yeah, the performative politics of it all always keeps us a safe distance from actually having the conversation that would solve the problem. I wanted to get to one of your recent pieces, Mr. Will, talking about the expensively credentialed, negligibly educated Stanford brats that threw a tantrum. Give us some perspective there. Tell us how you really feel.
Well, I'm so depressed by what's happening in academia. My father was a professor. I briefly was before sinking to journalism, as my father put it. It took us 800 years to evolve through political and ecclesiastical thickets. The great research universities that are the really ornaments of our society and civilization. You can kick it all away in a generation. When you get students who don't know why they're there and who think their job at university is to change the world, you have faculty who are the descendants now of the 60s radicals who went to earth on campus at the end of the 60s, got tenure, and have been replacing them with like-minded people ever since. Our universities are about to become unrecognizable as universities because what characterizes a university above all else is the freedom of thought, expression, curiosity. And all three are now endangered.
And as you look at that, it seems to me on so many campuses, and obviously the situation at Stanford last week, it seems there's this really weird, intolerant tolerance, intolerance in the name of tolerance that seems so askew to really the heart and soul of what these students should be learning on a college campus?
Well, a lot of them don't think they have anything to learn. Oh, sure, they want to learn contract law and antitrust and all the rest of the law school curriculum. But on the basic fact of life, they don't think they have anything to learn about virtue, about morality, about citizenship. They've got all the answers because they've been told since they were about 10 years old that they're special, that they're flawless, that the world is lucky to have them. And they bring this moral vanity that was instilled in them, not only at home by their overprotective and overpraising parents, but they learned it in 4 years on college campuses, where they were told that all the world contiguous to the campus is unregenerate, that campuses are little islands of enlightenment in an ocean of darkness, and their job is to bring to the world, the darkened world, the light of their understanding. It's a horrible exercise in moral vanity that disposes people not to learn anything because they think they know everything.
Oh, that is such. So let's talk about the antidote to that. How do we change that dynamics? Obviously, we're not going to shift it on college campuses overnight. But what is the real way? What should all of us be thinking and doing to make sure that we avoid that kind of vanity and make sure we stay curious and actually continue to learn and develop? Well,
first you need good college presidents. I'm struck by how much damage weak college presidents can do. The president of Yale is a good example. So many college presidents today are frightened of their faculty. They're frightened of their students. They're frightened of this enormous bureaucracy that has now enveloped higher education. There are now more administrators than there are teachers on our college campuses.
Wow.
So first you have to stop the bureaucratization. Then you have to get university presidents who have spines of steel and willing to defend the institution. Then you have to have some clear parameters of what the rules are and what the consequences are for breaking the rules. What Stanford should do, it's perfectly easy to do this, identify as many as possible of the students who simply shouted down a federal appellate judge and tell them it goes on their record. These are law students, and that when major law firms come around recruiting, hand to the recruiters a list of the students who behave this way. That'd be the end of that behavior.
We vote for that because I think what we end up doing in a lot of cases like this, because of the performative politics, we end up rewarding bad behavior by giving them a social media moment or putting them on cable news somehow.
Precisely.
So I want to shift gears for just a second because I want people to get just a little behind the scenes. You've been writing columns twice a week for a long time. Anybody can write something once, but the discipline to write, to think, to execute over a long period of time, I think is an extraordinary thing that is no small task with very high degree of difficulty. Just give us a little behind the scenes in terms of how you go about that each week as you approach your work.
Well, first of all, I love to write. A lot of writers don't like to write. They like hanging out in the journalistic culture. And they like the end product, seeing their name in print. But that stuff in the middle, where you actually have to put sentences and paragraphs together, they find agonizing. I'd rather write than eat. There's nothing gives me greater pleasure than putting together a good paragraph. So first of all, you have to like it. Second, you have to be stimulated by a lot of things. Anyone can write. Any damn fool can write, and a lot of damn fools do write. 750 words twice a week on how stupid Donald Trump is or something like that. I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
I think a good columnist should write a third to half his columns on topics that aren't not just on the front page of the New York Times, and not even in the New York Times. They are other aspects, law cases, civil liberties deprivations, good books, all kinds of things. The reading a syndicated column is the most optional thing in the world. No one has to do it. You got to read the front page. You got to read the sports pages because that's where virtue and merit are actually rewarded and illustrated. But reading a syndicated column is optional. So you better tell people something that's a pleasure for them to learn that they didn't know. So people always ask a columnist. I now know this to be the most frequently asked question because I asked it of Bill Buckley when I started. I asked Bill Buckley, I said, how do you come up with things to write about? And he said, the world irritates me 3 times a week. And the world stimulates my interest and curiosity 10 times a week.
Yeah.
I've always had for years now in my wallet a little card with a list of topics I hope to get to. I've got probably 15 on there now.
I love that.
And I won't get to them in 15 columns because the news keeps interrupting me.
Coming up, another one of my favorite interviews from 2023 was with former Speaker of the House Paul Ryan on our institutions, trust, and our young people. You don't want to miss this conversation. Stick around. We'll be right back.
This time of year can be a lot, and it's natural to feel some sadness or anxiety about it. But adding something new and positive to your life can counteract some of those feelings. Therapy can be a bright spot amid all of the stress and change. Something to look forward to make you feel grounded, and to give you the tools to manage everything going on. Learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Salt Lake today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Salt Lake, and get 10% off your first month.
Hi, this is Bill Wyatt, Executive Director for the Salt Lake City Department of Airports. The holiday travel season is a busy one here at Salt Lake City International, and with all the new features and amenities at the airport, your holiday travel experience here promises to be better than ever. As we continue to expand and grow, our passengers are experiencing more flights to more destinations, along with more restaurants and shops to enjoy, plus more amazing views and unique art installations. And coming soon, in fall 2024, you'll have shorter walking distances between concourses A and B when the Central Tunnel opens. With so much new to see and do here, I'd like to invite you to arrive early, relax, take in our festive decor, and start enjoying your holidays right here with us. To learn more about all the new things the airport has to offer, visit slcairport.com. Happy holidays, everyone.
Let's get together for Christmas. Let's take our time and make new memories.
From everyone at Shields, we hope you enjoy the gift of family and friends this holiday season. It's a special time to get together with those you love to make new memories. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays from all of us at Shields.
Gang together, let's get together this year.
Imagine how inconvenient your life would be without power. No lights, no refrigeration, no heating or cooling, and no electronics. But with a Generac home standby generator, you'll have the power when you need it most. Generac generators automatically provide backup after sensing a power outage, so your life goes on uninterrupted. Schedule a free quote today with Genco Generators, your premier Generac service dealer in Utah. Call 801-295-0872 or online at gencogenerators.net.
Dear Santa, thank you so much for remembering me this year. Christmas was the best. Thank you for the shoes, and I love the coat you brought. It's so cute and so warm.
At KSL, it's our hope that every child will have a warm and joyful holiday season. Please donate generously to KSL's Quarters for Christmas.
Every dollar raised goes to buy shoes and warm clothes for Utah children in need. Give what you can at KSLQuarters.com.
I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. Don't miss Cold's new Season 3, where I look into the unsolved disappearance of Cherie Warren, a woman last seen leaving her job at a Salt Lake City office in 1985. Police cast suspicion on Cherie's estranged husband and boyfriend, but never made any arrests or recovered Cherie's remains. Find Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, anywhere you get your podcasts.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Salt Lake City police arrested 14 people in sweeps along the Jordan River Trail. Second, the latest scam to show up in your text messages says you're not registered to vote. And third, the United Nations resolution calling for increased aid to civilians in Gaza may not be enough to stop the fighting. Right now, 52 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
We're continuing to highlight some of my favorite interviews of 2023. In October, I spoke with former Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. He was visiting Utah Valley University's Herbert Institute for Public Policy. I began by asking him, what gives you a sense of the direction that our institutions are taking?
I teach at Notre Dame now, and I've been teaching there. This is my 5th year teaching at Notre Dame. And I also nominated all these young people to the military academies.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
part of the job,
Yeah, it's
right?
part of your job. Everybody in Congress does this. And so you see all these incredible young people coming through, wanting to serve their country. Now I get to teach, I'm an Irish Catholic from the Midwest, so you grow up, with Notre Dame in
Notre
your
Dame's
blood.
it.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is it gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of young, exciting, just capable, talented, idealistic young people who just have a cool life ahead of them. And it gives me hope. It gives me confidence. We've had, to the institution question, we are in a bit of an institutional crisis right now in America, in free society, in democracy. And I think there is a lot of deinstitutionalization that's underway.
Yeah.
And so the question is, can we see that for what it is? And I think a lot of us do.
Yeah.
In society, and can we buttress these institutions? Can we rebuild these institutions? Can we defend these institutions? And our institutions, they're very strong. They're very durable. They're taking a lot of hits, but they are proving resilient.
Yeah.
And so the question is, and I'm an eternal optimist, these young people that are, coming up in society, I think they're realizing that it's important to have these long-standing institutions that safeguard our basic founding principles, our creed.
Yeah.
And I think that they're understanding that these institutions are worthy of defending and supporting, and that there's a generation of populism, coursing through our society. You sort of have moral relativism with the accelerant of digitization that is pervaded throughout our society. That is coarsening these institutions, that is sort of eroding against these institutions. And I do believe that there are a lot of young people who believe we got to get back to the basics.
Yeah. Isn't it
so
amazing?
I actually am kind of encouraged about it, frankly.
It's amazing to me that the young people are the ones who have recognized this need to go back and preserve and do that. The moral relativism that you mentioned is such an important part of that. You mentioned in your conversation with the students kind of these stress tests that the country is going over, and whether that's internal or external. We often talk on this show about one of the other stress tests. We've stress tested this constitutional republic in World War, pandemic, economic collapse. We've never really stress tested it in the absence of trust. And I think that's kind of part of both the moral relativism that's undermining that.
Right.
But give us some perspective in terms of how do we make sure we pass that stress test in addition to the inside out that you were talking about.
If you ask me the biggest problem in society, I would say it's relativism. And the accelerant of relativism is digitization.
Yeah.
And that means my truth is different than your truth, and your truth is no better than my truth. It's whatever. It's relative to my own perspective. That's not true.
Truth is truth.
That's actually not true.
Yeah.
Truth is truth. There is a right and there is a wrong, and there are indisputable facts. So the problem these days is everybody wants their own truth. They hang out in their digital cul-de-sac. This is the stress test I mentioned. I was talking earlier with the students. We have this external stress test, which is tyranny versus democracy, China versus America, the techno-tyrannies. Yeah. But the internal stress test of all democracies, and particularly ours, is are we ripping each other apart from within? Are we going to muster the stuff we need to do to solve our big pressing problems like the debt crisis that's coming. And then this relativism problem. If we can't operate on a common sense of right and wrong and truth and fact, then it's pretty impossible for us to repair our rifts for different people from different backgrounds and different perspectives to be able to coexist with one another. You have to have a bedrock of truth there. So this is digital challenges. This is a challenge in the digital age, which frankly, my best guess is having a vibrant civil society, those institutions of civil society that allow us to discover and see and defend the truth and to share it and understand it and to embrace pluralism is a thing. As a conservative, what I don't like is this sort of progressive ideology that seeks to enforce its own, sort of woke is an overused word, but it seeks to enforce its own, anti-pluralistic ideology. And then you have on the right, you have this sort of own the liberals populism that is not rooted in principle. That is just, it's almost authoritarian in some ways. It's not rooted in principle. I want to get back to basic, classical liberal conservatism. That's me. That's my brand. But I think if you can just allow the young people to be able to get out of their cul-de-sacs, experience right and wrong and truth, and then have some authorities in society that are arbiters of what is right and what is wrong. Don't, you see black and white in your eyes in front of you. I think we can get through this moment, but it's a real stress test because we've had these kinds of moments in society before. The 60s was, pre-me, but we've never had it with all the digital challenges we've had. And that's the new challenge, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And that truth and trust are always inextricably connected. You alluded to something that you spent a lot of time when you were in Congress, one that I think was one of your most important contributions, and that is the whole idea of civil society, focusing really to make sure that government stays in their lane and does what they're supposed to do. But with that trust, then you can actually have community-driven solutions and things that actually create that upward mobility. Give us some perspective in terms of how we get back to that conversation.
So we have a constitutional limited government, right? So I believe that government has its important role that it plays. It's a very important role, but it's not everything. That's why I have a big problem with progressivism. And that means we have to have this space that's between us and our government where we actually live our lives and that we build up those local institutions. And that's where the trust comes, because it is easier to trust what's in front of you, the person that you know, the community you live in, and to build those institutions, your church, your civic organizations, just the things you do in life where you're experiencing one another, where you actually can see the facts in front of you, know the person with you that you can trust. We call that subsidiarity as Catholics, and it basically is a religious version of federalism. Basically, it's kind of a kissing cousin to federalism. What that means is you build society and life from the ground up, from the family to the community to the county to the state and the local government and larger, and you solve your problems locally because that gets you the stuff of life. It gives you the vibrant society where you are being a part of the solution. You're creating, you're collaborating, you're solving problems, you're helping people. That stuff builds trust. That stuff builds a common society in which a free society can rest.
More to come on Inside Sources after top of the hour news. We're going to get into my conversation with Professor Najeeba Saeed on how to foster interfaith dialogue during war, political tensions, and other crises. Stay with us. This is a crucial conversation you do not want to miss. Coming up next on Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
Listen at home on any smart speaker.
And in your car at 102.7 FM.
This is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomis. KSL's top story this hour. Utah's unemployment rate ticked up ever so slightly in November to 2.8%. Department of Workforce Services Deputy Director Nate McDonald says this report also included a lot to like.
Really, we're just seeing things moderate and come back down to a level of normalcy. Even though those are job losses, but they're ones that industry just couldn't remain going that strong for so long.
Job growth in Utah is about 2% from this same time a year ago. An Orem resident had a long-held wish come true, a chat with Dolly Parton. LeGrand Gold has been battling colon cancer for the past 2 years, and he created a bucket list called LG's List of Living. One of the top list items was a chat with Dolly Parton.
Well, it's LG.
He's right here, and you should see the smile on his face.
Okay, well, hey, LG.
Hey.
It's Dolly P.
Gold is a Dolly superfan. He and his wife Alice raised their 5 children around Parton's music, took multiple trips to Dollywood. Even though he didn't get to meet Dolly Parton in person, he was still able to tell her just how much she means to him. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average has slipped into negative territory by about 18 points right now. The NASDAQ is up still, though, 29 points on the day so far. And coming up, it looks like our weather will be a little bit damp over the weekend, but clear up by Christmas. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:01.
What do you need to hear in the morning to feel ready for the day?
Important news that happened overnight, the traffic you'll hit on the roads.
You'll be ready for your day with us.
Join Utah's Morning News 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
New home for the new year? Sounds nice, doesn't it? What about new lowered rates? Now's the time to step into a gorgeous new Nilsson home with less commute times, easy access, and with rates that have dropped more significantly than all year. Less really is more in this case. Less maintenance, less commute, and less money per month. Move north with Nilsson Homes. Choose from beautiful townhomes to Rambler communities for all stages of life. Most of all, Nilsson Homes are move-in ready and close to what you love and enjoy with easy commutes. Nilsson Homes has been building across the Wasatch Front for over 45 years, accommodating all the things you need, combined with the things you love. Make sure to ask about end-of-year promotional savings. Experience your new home for the new year. Visit Nilsson Homes Communities at nilssonhomes.com. NILSON homes.com. That's nilssonhomes.com.
Held over due to popular demand today through Sunday. Save thousands on hot tubs and swim spas. It's a major manufacturer's liquidation of hundreds of in-stock spas. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Hot tubs discounted 40 to 80% to the lowest possible price, starting at $29.99. Free professional delivery. Take possession tomorrow, next week, next month, or next season. The Hot Tub and Swim Spa Sale. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Shop over a dozen models of swim spas from 11 feet to over 19 feet. Swim spas offer low-impact exercise, active family fun, unsurpassed relaxation, and installation in one day. The Hot Tub and Swim Spa Sale. Everything must go. Free parking, free admission. You can't afford to miss this. It's a major manufacturer's liquidation of hundreds of in-stock spas. Today, noon to 8. Saturday, 10 to 8. Sunday, 10 to 6. The Hot Tub and Swim Spa Sale. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Visit hottubandswimspasale.com.
This joyful sound is the No More Chemo bell at Intermountain Health St. George Hospital. And it means that Sarah Parker beat cancer. It also means her doctor spotted it early enough to treat, and that her oncologist helped her fight it every step of the way. It means that her nurse helped her keep track of medicines, and that a case manager made the whole experience just a little bit easier. Every time we hear that bell, it reminds us that all things are possible when we work together. It reminds us of the power of we. Intermountain Health.
Crimson Collective's Utah FTW 360 app, giving you player profiles, game stats, exclusive videos, and a brand new Ram 1500. At the end of the year, one lucky fan will win a Ram 1500, and you can also win prizes like free tickets and signed merch each week. Anyone who downloads the app is entered to win, so get Crimson Collective's Utah FTW 360 app today. Winners track may vary, no purchase necessary. Giveaway starts at 12 a.m. Mountain Time on September 1st, 2023, and ends at 11:59 p.m. Mountain Time on December 31st, 2023. Open only to legal residents of the state of Utah, U.S., who are 21 or older with internet access and valid email address. Limit 1 entry per person, household, or email address. See official rules at ftwin360.com/truck giveaway for full details. Void where prohibited.
Now, emergency traffic and weather together now, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. And And here's Michelle Rowe.
Well, we're looking at a live shot of this crash. This is southbound I-15 just south of Pleasant Grove Boulevard. Those delays are backing up to Pioneer Crossing. This is due to a crash that has been blocking the 2 right lanes and an on-ramp to go southbound on I-15. Expect plenty of backups as you move through the area. This holiday season, receive the gift of taking up to $10,000 off a new Silverado. When you walk through their doors, you feel like family at Murdoch Chevrolet in Logan or Woods Cross, or online at murdochchev.com. I'm Michelle Rowe in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, we'll see a quick storm moving through central and southern Utah tonight. The cold front moves through northern Utah tomorrow. We'll see snow in the mountains and some rain and snow in the valleys by Saturday night. This should also improve our air quality. The outlook for Christmas Day, cool and partly cloudy. Right now, 48 degrees and partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bonas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, the headlines after the war broke out in the Middle East, of course, Americans and the world have been seeing a rising tide of both anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. So turning the tide will take a whole lot of work. Interfaith work, personal work, community work, and much better dialogue. But when the tensions are high, the question is, how do we get past all of the anger, fear, and frustration of the headlines, and how do we reach across the divides and increase our understanding of different faiths, of each other, and our community? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, it is a special privilege for us to have joining us on the program today Najeeba Saeed, Executive Director of the Interfaith Institute at Augsburg University in Minneapolis, Minnesota. She's been a professor, a practitioner, a public speaker, has been involved in so many important and crucial conversations, and just thrilled to have her on the program as we look at what's going on around the world, and obviously a lot of the conflicts that have sparked an increase in Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and a host of other things that are ruining and crippling our conversations and undermining the trust that we have in our communities. And Professor Saeed, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. What a pleasure. I'm delighted to be on your show, and thank you for all the good work that you do utilizing this platform.
We're excited for a conversation. Hopefully we can elevate everything today. One of the things that I know has been central to your work in so many different settings is that at a time globally and locally of a lot of clenched fists, that you are centered in always starting with an open hand. Describe that for us and your approach to that.
Absolutely. And, I think you mentioned a couple of, current realities that we're experiencing in our country. And, I think it's a really important time for us to do what I call getting to know our neighbor, getting to know our city, getting to know our community wherever you are. We're already we know that every 4 years with a national election cycle, a couple of things happen. One of them is Islamophobia, or speech and hate directed to Muslims, and anti-Semitism, speech and hate directed against Jews, goes up, unfortunately. It's part of the pattern. People utilize hate. Added to that, we're seeing a huge spike in both of those forms of bias against religious communities. And what I wanted to share is, the best antidote to hate is two things. One of them is getting to know someone from a community. So let's make an effort. Let's get to know each other. And the other is learning accurate information. Sorry, this is the professor in me. Learning accurate information about other religions from people from those communities. And I just, I think this could be a moment where we say, guess what? I'm gonna pull aside and hunker down and, just not respond or get to know people, but I wanted to encourage all of us, including me, to say, hey, is there a moment that I can knock on my neighbor's door, that I can, talk to them about Hanukkah, talk to them about Ramadan that's coming up in a few months, and learn about it. What is it like to be Christian? What is it like to be Muslim? What is it like to be Jewish in the United States? If you're in a small town, if you're in a college campus, or if you're in a big city.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I love the fact that you emphasize that we learn about these other faiths or these other communities, not from some angry, white-hot rhetoric on the internet or cable television news, but you actually go to the source, to someone who's in that community, who believes that particular way, and that we start to find those spaces of holy envy where someone who believes different or practices uniquely can actually help us stay curious, and we can actually learn. So let's unpack that a little bit more for us in terms of how do we get to that space of learning and curiosity and getting to the right source so that we can actually have better connection.
Absolutely. And, I think one of the blessings of this country is our diversity. I always tell my students it would be a boring world if we were all exactly the same. So, I teach this really wonderful class called Interfaith Scholars on my college campus, and it's a year-long journey, and students do community service together, and they learn about each other's traditions. And one of my students really said something beautiful at the end of the semester class. She said something about humble listening and presence. And, here's a student under the age of 21 probably. They're freshmen to junior and seniors in college. And I was really struck by that because what it meant is you come into every conversation saying, hey, I have something to learn. And she talked, in this kind of closing class about the journey of our class together. And in this semester, it happens to be mostly Christians, Jews, and Muslims and students really embedded in their community. And I thought that was such a beautiful way to say, hi, I'm showing up. I want to know, where you're coming from. And the professor in me, again, just wants to share with people, there's this really beautiful concept called lived religion. And a lot of times when we think about talking or studying about religion, people want to just bring up text. And I always say, text is really important. That's what we're grounded in many communities. Let's talk a little bit more about context. So what does it mean for someone to live out the Bible in their life? What does it mean for someone to live out the Torah? What does it mean for someone to live out the Quran? Because there's so much that you learn from a text and ancient wisdom, text from hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. But what does that mean to, what does that mean to someone who is trying, as my student said, one of them is managing a cafe, and she happens to be Christian, and she talked to her supervisor and said, guess what? Muslims have dietary restrictions that I learned about in class. Can we put together just some indication on our menu about what they can eat and what they can't eat? And, that you move from, I would say, humble listening to hospitality. And I think that's a really beautiful thing where we can all do that. And, I always tell people I'm a Muslim, and I learned from, for instance, Christians about their journey and their comfortability with talking about their relationship with God. I'm very private about that. And it was so fascinating to me to see what I learned about how other people, how they're so deeply connected to whatever their practice is, that I can kind of appreciate them in their place. I don't have to agree with them. I don't adopt their practice, I keep my own practice, they keep theirs. But as you said, there's holy envy. It's a beautiful thing to watch someone else be connected to their practice. So whether it's, in this moment, Christmas or Hanukkah, and as I mentioned, Ramadan is coming up, and there are so many other religious traditions that we can spend a moment and say, so tell me, I tell people, ask questions. So tell me why this is important to you. Tell me what your family practices. How can we connect about these different traditions. So many of them involve food. Why not bring food over to your neighbor?
Whenever in doubt, yeah.
I know. I talk about that as I've written about it as casserole hospitality, especially in the Midwest.
Yes.
You know, you show up with a casserole, and sometimes if you're Muslim, maybe you show up with and you happen to be Syrian, or maybe you're whatever your background is. Maybe you show up with a different kind of casserole. It's not exactly the same, but we can all relate to that, right?
I
being
love
a good guest and being a good host.
Yeah, good guest, good host, going from that humble listening to hospitality, getting beyond text to context in terms of that lived religion. I think all of those are so important. And part of that, you alluded to this, Professor, in terms of that being present. We always say that the most holy thing you can give another person is your presence. And especially when you can give your whole presence, your entire presence, being curious and humble and truly listening and soaking that in and learning from that is such an important part of the equation. You have also proven sometimes you have to go into the unexpected places. I know not too long after the Hamas attacks on October 7th, you found yourself in a Jewish synagogue. Describe that for us, and what surprised you, or what did you learn in that moment?
I think that one of the things that I really learned in the work that I've done is that we can show up for each other. You know, that was something that was already scheduled. That was a relationship that had already been built. And in that moment, when I talk about sacred witness, it's really about thinking about humanizing stories. And I see that as the goal of all education, and higher education in particular. It's not about demonizing one another. It's about listening to what people need, where they're coming from. And there have been so many moments like that in my life. And I don't know if people remember the Christchurch shooting that happened at a mosque in New Zealand. People from various religious communities showed up at my mosque for the press conference. And, you know, one of the things that really saddens me, and here I'm talking about the United States, is that houses of worship have been targeted for violence. As we think about where and how do we show up for one another, to me, that question is showing up in a space because I am a Muslim and because I feel and know that empathy is one of the core pieces of how I relate to other human beings, that every human being has dignity. And so I think about, you know, whatever your religious background is, for listeners, or maybe they don't have a religious tradition and they have an ethical motivation. You know, how do we begin to, instead of moving into a place of demonizing one another, moving into a place where we don't see the stories behind the headlines? Let's take a moment to think about what would it mean to humanize? Yeah. What would it mean to utilize, whether it's this tool that you have as a radio show, whatever the tools that we have, can we spend, engage, and think about humanizing the stories of pain and trauma that people are going through? And I just, you know, encourage people to do that because it's not always easy. And it's something that I feel like is at the core of the future of our democracy as a country, is our ability to have human conversations with each other. And if we're not going to get to that place, you know, what holds us together except the bond that we are human beings, sharing, whether we share this country, this city, this planet, and the future of our world depends on us recognizing that there is a level of interdependence. Yeah. That if I'm safe, if you're safe, and you're safe if I'm safe, and how do we get to that place together?
Understanding the identity and divinity that we can hold with reverence and respect for each other is how we get past that clenched fist to the open hand. We're going to stay with this conversation with Professor Najeeba Saeed when we come back on Inside Sources. Stick around.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Still don't have the perfect holiday gift? At Shane Company, we have the largest selection of last-minute gifts in every price range. Gorgeous gold chains, diamond stud earrings, that special pendant they'll wear every day, and more. As your friend in the jewelry business, we offer our customers high-quality jewelry, the best warranty in the industry, and exceptional customer service. 'Tis the season to shine. Shane Company, fine jewelry since 1929.
If it's out of sight, it's out of mind. Even though that's an old adage, it's still very true today. And it's especially true of your old 401k. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, asking you to get that old 401k in sight and out of the company you no longer work for. But don't roll it into your new 401k. That could be one of the worst things you do. Of course that's easy. But when has the easiest way ever been the best way? Instead, call Trajan Wealth and learn about all of your options, including a way to earn an upfront bonus of up to 25% for your future income just for rolling it over. That's right. You could earn up to a 25% bonus for your retirement income just for rolling that 401k over with Trajan Wealth. Don't roll that 401k into your new company plan. Don't do it without calling Trajan Wealth first. Call 801-899-7600 or visit TrajanWealth.com.
Guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.
Introducing Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. Whether it's a small clog or a larger mainline sewer drain issue, the experienced technicians at Yes are ready to solve all of your drain problems. Take advantage of our 83 or It's Free mainline drain clearing special. Feel secure knowing the trusted professionals at Yes guarantee that if we can't clear it, you don't pay for it. Visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions.
A holiday message from Jackson Hewitt.
'Twas the yikes before Christmas when all through the house not a creature was stirring, except Larry. See, the stockings weren't hung by the chimney with care, 'cause Larry's wallet was empty with no time to spare. So he went to Jackson Hewitt for a holiday loan, got money so fast he rejoiced and went home. Avoid the yikes before Christmas. Go to Jackson Hewitt before it's too late. Get up to $1,000 fast, minus the wait.
Early refund advance offered to eligible clients. Application required. Finance charge applies. Loans by Republic Bank. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Get deeper insights on the news from inside sources.
If you're just joining us, we're having a fantastic conversation with Professor Najeeba Saeed, who is a professor of interfaith studies at Augsburg University in Minnesota. An amazing voice on interfaith community and what it really means to be a peacemaker. We talked in the first segment about the difference of just looking at another faith in text as opposed to context and lived religion, where you actually get a much better view of things. And during our discussion on how to better foster connection and interfaith dialogue, and just dialogue in general between people of faith and people of no faith, particularly during a time of crisis, I asked Professor Saeed to unpack a concept she calls engaging in sacred witness, even amid deep conflict. Here's what she had to say.
You know, I tell people the test of our moral compass isn't around when we show up, when we have to, or we show up because we have skin in the game or we're directly affected. I think that is an imperative that, you know, most human beings would respond to. For me, the moments that have been really important is when people who show up in that sacred witness walking with me in my journey of trauma and pain, or I show up for others walking with them in their journey of trauma and pain, that it's actually when we may lose something, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's a profoundly important story of almost every religious prophet from so many different traditions. There's a loss to stand up and do that sacred witness. There's a loss that could happen. It could be a material loss. It could be sometimes a loss of family. It could be, you know, and I think to me that's the moment where a spiritual gain, and by that I mean the divine, or however, you know, and I want to make sure people know that this is not a conversation just for people of a religious background. You can have a deep moral persuasion that you draw on that informs you. a belief system that you see the world with and a human element to that. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there because I want to make sure that everyone knows that there's room at the table for this conversation. And so that sacred part is connected to thinking about relationships as not transactional, but transformational. So as you said, for instance, sometimes we show up and there's a gain. Maybe there's a social capital gain. Maybe there's a financial gain. Maybe there's a photo op that boosts our capacity to be seen as powerful in some way. Or maybe the opposite is happening. Maybe we show up and we lose something. Maybe we show up and there's a cost for us in some way. And that second, the latter, sort of thinking through the cost, that's where a relationship is transformational, where I say, you know what, I'm going to show up for this person and they show up for me. And I've been on journeys with many people of many different religious traditions where it becomes a transformational relationship, where that sacred part of the journey is saying that no human being deserves to experience violence. Every human life is sacred. And how do we build what we talk about as cultures of peace? How do we begin to think, peace? I always tell people peace is the most abstract ideological or religious concept where we can say, may peace reign. And what does it actually mean to live in relationship with one another in such a way that we start to diminish violence as an option?
Oh, I love that. That is so powerful, and it is when we stop looking at each other as transactions, we start building relations. That is where the transformation, starting with ourselves, actually begins. And sometimes I think we resist that transformational moment for fear what it might bring. As you said, sometimes it comes at a cost. You may lose another set of friends, or you may lose political power or positioning for those who might disagree. But I love people who are always willing to go not just into the safe spaces, not just with the crowd they already know, but are willing to go into surprising spaces or even to places where they may not be welcome, but to go in with an open hand, with the kind of curiosity that leads to those transformational moments. I think that's where the real power is. Professor Saeed, before I let you go, give us one last thing as we close out this year. What's the one thing that you wish we were thinking about a little differently, or something that maybe we should be doing a little differently as we embark in the new year of 2024?
Well, as I'm thinking about next year, I think what's really important for me is thinking about it, as we're entering this election year, is thinking about what and how do we stay connected with each other, stay in relationship with each other. What's the fabric that binds us together in our neighborhoods, in our communities? Because I think if there's the ability to articulate some bond of connection, then what it will hopefully do is create an environment in which we don't have to agree, where we don't have to, have the same perspective, but we can do a little bit of what's called perspective taking, which is trying to see a particular issue, a particular story, a particular narrative. And people who study perspective taking, they don't say you walk in someone else's shoes. They say you stand in someone else's shoes for a moment or two. So what would it mean to kind of think about issues, think about whatever the narrative or story? What if I were to take a moment and say, wait, how does my friend so-and-so, what's their attachment to this? What's their perspective? And just take a moment to ponder on that, because I do think there's so much to be learned, and the more that we're able to understand someone else's perspective, their attachment to it, their perspective, and again, I can say, you know what, I don't agree with that. I'm not going to come to you. I'm not going to come to agreement to your perspective, but now I see why it's important to you.
Yeah.
That will create a capacity for us not to just have conversations, but I think to solve really dire issues of our time. I mean, I think we have some really serious concerns in each of our communities. Last year in our community, we were really concerned about the opioid crisis. This year, there are just so many challenges that go beyond I often tell people one of the things I hope we learn from the pandemic is that there are certain things that go beyond any divide that we have that impact all of us. And there were some really incredible and powerful lessons that we learned about trying to solve collective human problems.
So powerful, and it is developing that capacity for those connections to flourish and solve some of those big issue problems of our time. Professor Najeeba Saeed, Augsburg University in Minneapolis, Minnesota, thank you so much for joining us today, for elevating the conversation, for giving us some great things to think about and to think again about, which I hope we do in the days and weeks ahead. And we look forward to continuing this conversation with you. And again, are so grateful to have you join us on Inside Sources today.
Anytime. Thank you so much.
That is a powerful conversation. I hope you go back and listen to the podcast. And there's so much to unpack in there, so many deep pieces that will help us improve our capacity to increase our connection so we can solve problems as a connected, interconnected community. We'll step aside for bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour, just in time for Christmas. The stomach bug is spreading like wildfire in Utah right now. KSL News Radio's Amy Kobe reports.
This is one of those illnesses that when you get it, you know you're sick.
It's misery. The only consolation is it doesn't last long, but it's still just for the time that you have it, you wish you didn't.
Lane McCullough with the Salt Lake County Health Department says they've seen a big spike in norovirus cases in a short amount of time.
So hard to tell people to avoid their being around other people when they're sick, especially this time of year. But if you are sick, just try to maintain a distance.
McCullough also suggests washing your hands and surfaces regularly because the norovirus germs aren't stopped by hand sanitizer. Amy Kobabe, KSL News Radio.
Salt Lake City police say they've arrested 14 people and seized fentanyl pills and cash in 2 sweeps along the Jordan River Trail. The first was Monday, the second yesterday. A news release says officers are trying to identify drug dealers along the trail. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The U.S. Supreme Court has declined a request from prosecutors to expedite a review of a key question raised in former President Trump's January 6th case in Washington. ABC News national correspondent Stephen Portnoy has the latest.
Special counsel Jack Smith fiercely argued that the high court should leap into the case now to settle a key question Trump has raised, whether he enjoys absolute immunity from prosecution covering his acts as president. For now, the justices have declined Smith's request, saying the question must first be answered by the D.C. Circuit Appeals Court. It means it's now highly unlikely the federal election interference case will get underway as scheduled on March 4th.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average, closing trading today down 18 points, while the NASDAQ closed up 29 and the S&P 500 up about 7. And our KSL weather, a little bit of rainy and snowy weather for the weekend, but then Christmas looks like it'll clear up. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:32.
We have enough people running around Broadcast House at 4 in the morning to field a football team.
Producers, reporters, the traffic team, and us.
This is Tim and Amanda.
Join us each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Still don't have the perfect holiday gift? At Shane Company, we have the largest selection of last-minute gifts in every price range. Gorgeous gold chains, diamond stud earrings, that special pendant they'll wear every day, and more. As your friend in the jewelry business, we offer our customers high-quality jewelry, the best warranty in the industry, and exceptional customer service. 'Tis the season to shine. Shane Company, fine jewelry since 1929.
The holiday season is right around the corner, so give the gift that's hard to wrap but easy to give. Give them a STIHL. With powerful trimmers, blowers, and chainsaws to place under the tree, the STIHL Holiday Gift Guide has something for everyone. Save $30 on the GTA 26 battery-powered garden pruner. Visit your local STIHL dealer or go to stihlusa.com/gift guide. Real STIHL. Find yours. Now $149.99 was $179.99 MSRP. Offer valid for a limited time only at participating dealers while supplies last.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Hello, car donation hotline.
Hi, I'd like to donate a car to the Utah Kidney Foundation. Are you in Utah?
Awesome. Let's get some info and we'll send you a tow truck.
But I want my car donation to benefit my neighbor in Farmington who needs a transplant. Are you in Utah?
That's a no. I'm in SoCal, but you're still donating to charity.
What charity?
Does it matter?
Yes, I want my donation to stay in Utah.
Righteous dude. You need to call Tow Cars in Utah. Locals only, am I right?
Oh, yeah. I remember tow cars with a K like kidney. It's on a billboard somewhere. TOWKARS.org. That's it. Towcars.org.
If you'd like your vehicle donation to help Utah kidney patients in the Beehive State, please use the web address on their billboard, towcars.org, to donate your old car or truck. That's TOWK like kidney, ARS. Towcars.org.
Guys, want to lose weight, improve your performance, and increase your drive? Revive Men's Health Salt Lake can help you address the root causes of weight gain, low energy, poor drive, and performance issues. And since your testosterone level has a direct impact on your weight and fitness, we'll give you a free T-check and free exam at Revive Salt Lake. Imagine upping your game, losing weight, and getting in shape all at once. Revive can help you make it happen with our new cutting-edge weight loss medications, like your favorite athletes and celebrities use. They're affordable and available now. Weight gain and low T are treatable conditions. We know we can help you. Take that first step and book today. You're only one step away from getting in the best shape of your life. Call Revive Men's Health at 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Once again, emergency traffic brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Michelle Rowe.
We have emergency traffic in Utah County due to an earlier crash. The good news is the crash has cleared. The bad news is closing 3 lanes southbound I-15 in American Fork really slows you down. You're going to see those delays prior to Lehigh's Main Street, straggling down into the Linden area. And then we have one more trouble spot, I-15. This is going between Centerville and Farmington. Michelle, mortgage rates have fallen. Lower your payment. Find out more at loansbyrick.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 287106. That's loansbyrick.com. I'm Michelle Rowe in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather will storm moving through central and southern Utah tonight. The cold front moves through northern Utah tomorrow, so we'll see snow in the mountains, some rain and snow in the valleys by Saturday night, and this should also improve our air quality. The outlook for Christmas Day, cool and partly cloudy. Right now, 52 degrees, partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson. On Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, with less than a year to go until the 2024 presidential election and his year-end approval ratings continuing to slip and slide, pretty much worse than any modern-day president, according to Gallup, President Biden is in search of a win. Bidenomics has not been the answer, so the president's been looking to his infrastructure spending packages as a way to tout some practical, tactical wins. Unfortunately, the benefits have not quite materialized as planned. And according to CNN, the president is none too happy that he continues to wallow in those low numbers and not get credit for his signature piece of legislation. So he's looking for someone to blame or something to blame. And as is often the case, you might want to check the sources. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to check our best source. Eric Boehm, a reporter at Reason, covers economic policy, trade policy, the elections, a true friend of the show and someone who we have looked throughout 2023 on many occasions to help us navigate through the issues of the day. And Eric, welcome to a final round of Inside Sources for 2023.
That means I'm off the hook for next week.
You're off the hook.
Good to be here, boys. Thank you for having me.
We're gonna let you exhale just ever so slightly before we turn on the gas in 2024. So give us your sense as the president is trying to figure out a way to either hit bottom or get footing or push off from something. He thought he could do that through the infrastructure bill, but it isn't quite working out the way he planned.
Sure. I mean, always the political angle on the infrastructure bill was about re-election, right? I mean, that's the way these things always work. Of course, there's a need out there for some of this, and I think that drove a good bit of the policy decisions. But I mean, look, when President Trump talked about wanting to do, infrastructure week, as he constantly termed it, and when Biden came in and moved through this bipartisan infrastructure deal, it's always looking towards the next election, right? It's always with the idea that you'll be able to go out there and stand in front of, new freeway overpasses or new train stations or something, and basically say, like, look what I'm doing for you, America. I'm building this. And there's some frustration, as you said. CNN reported this week that there's immense frustration, actually, is the way one of their unnamed sources termed it, inside the White House, about the fact that, some of that stuff just isn't materializing yet. On one hand, some of this just takes time, right? Like, I mean, you don't snap your fingers. Doesn't matter how much money you dump on a federal project, it doesn't materialize overnight. On the other hand, I just found this kind of amusing, and this is the piece that I wrote at Reason, because, the White House and Biden really kind of went out of their way to make a lot of these decisions take longer than they would otherwise need to. A lot of red tape connected to these infrastructure projects, lots of additional federal oversight that normally wouldn't be involved. Typically, in the past, the federal government just kind of gives states the money and lets them decide how to spend it when there's these big infrastructure deals. That's not the case here. And then there's all sorts of other stuff, Buy American rules, tariffs, all sorts of other things that are getting in the way and just slowing down the rollout of that, turning that money into physical stuff.
Yeah, it's so interesting as they look for finger pointing and blame to be placed somewhere. It is sort of circular in all of that. And you raise a really important point. I think President Obama was the first to really recognize shovel-ready is not even close to shovel-ready.
Yeah.
It's not even close. But I want you to unpack for us just a little bit of some of those things that you mentioned. There were things that President Biden purposefully put into that infrastructure spending in terms of some of the regulatory pieces and the America First pieces and all of that. Just walk us through a couple of those to give us a sense of why some of the things that the president put in actually made it harder to do the very things that he wants to get done.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think the Buy American rules is probably one of the best examples, maybe the best example of this. We've had Buy American rules for federal procurement for a long time, and really what that means is a certain percentage of like any material that's used in a federally funded construction project has to be sourced from the United States. And the Biden administration tightened those rules quite significantly, expanded them actually so that they would cover a bunch of stuff, real basic stuff like copper wiring, drywall, concrete, stuff that it never applied to before. And what this, it just limits the amount of available supply, right? It limits the what you can purchase from to get started on one of these big projects. And so it does create some backlogs in that regard. This is, completely predictable. It was, us at Reason wrote about how this was going to slow down the rollout of infrastructure dollars. The Wall Street Journal, Forbes, a bunch of other publications covered this right around the time the bill passed. Everybody could see this coming. This is, it shouldn't be a surprise. State secretaries of transportation about a year ago, a whole bunch of them wrote a letter to the White House basically raising this same point and saying, hey, we need waivers to these Buy American rules if you want us to actually get started on these projects. So, none of this should be coming as a surprise to the White House. It's a bit amusing that they do seem to be kind of surprised by it now. You've got the same thing, with the tariffs on steel, for example. You need a lot of steel for most infrastructure projects, right? And so that's another thing that just limits the available supply, creates higher prices, which is effectively the same thing, right? If you've got a finite amount of money to spend on infrastructure projects and you have to spend more of that on every piece of steel you buy, then you ultimately get less. You get less bang for your buck. So that's another way in which, they've kind of kneecapped this process. And it just, this goes on and on. There's also a bunch of additional federal permitting rules that are attached to some of these projects that didn't exist before. The Department of Transportation has a much greater role in kind of picking and choosing which projects get funded. As I said before, that wouldn't be the case. Typically, the federal government would just distribute money to the states and let the states figure out how they want to spend it. But that's, every time you add more paperwork, you add more levels of approval, you add more bureaucracy, that just slows this down. So in many ways, I understand Biden's frustration here, but in many ways, he's getting exactly what he wanted.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's surprising is that they're surprised by all of this. And one of the things that you pointed out in your piece that I thought was also important was that it's really important to keep in mind that there was no permitting reform, there was no changes at all in terms of some of those very costly, very slow environmental reviews that often get in the way of a lot of these kinds of projects.
Yeah, that's another huge thing. That's something that was talked about. Senator Joe Manchin talked a bunch about this, both when the infrastructure package was moving through Congress, and then again when the Build Back Better plan was moving through Congress a few months after that. And in both cases tried to include permitting reform as part of it, specifically looking at the NEPA reforms. That's the national in the 70s that requires it requires an environmental review process for any federally funded construction project. Been weaponized by people that oppose these construction projects, oftentimes for reasons that have nothing to do whatsoever with the environment. The average NEPA review now runs something like 4.5 years. It's the average review runs 4.5 years. I think my favorite example, I mentioned this in the piece, is that there was a proposal to build a power supply line from a wind farm in Wyoming to the Las Vegas suburbs, right? An area of the country that's growing, the Las Vegas area, from an area of the country that has a lot of wind in Wyoming, and going through, right through your backyard in a sense. The way should be pretty easy to build that power supply line. Took 15 years just to get the federal permits lined up to build that, and it's still not under construction. Even now, they're still waiting to get started. It's just that holds, this review process, understandable that you want to balance environmental concerns with, infrastructure, but it seems like that balance has really been thrown off. And so there was an opportunity here to reform that process, to streamline that process in some way, and that opportunity was missed. So, again, you've got the Biden administration here kind of adding a bunch of things like the Buy American rules that make these projects take longer to get going. And then there's also the missed opportunity of some things that could have been done to move things along more quickly.
Yeah, no question about it. And it's always ironic in all of those things. Sometimes they are the political purposes as to why they want to get that passed going into an election year. But they might have to put and remind these people in office that if you pass this now, the way you've written it, it will not affect your whoever follows you in office. It might be 8 to 16 years down the road before this project even begins. So your photo op is going to be 16 years after you leave office. I think is a very different animal. Eric Boehm, always appreciate your perspective. Great writing, great piece at Reason.com. Check that out today. Eric, have a very Merry Christmas, a great New Year, and we'll catch you early in 2024 as we continue to march it all forward.
Hey, thanks so much, Boyd. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you and your family and the whole staff there. Really appreciate you guys having us on.
All
so
right.
We'll talk to you next year.
Fantastic. And that's Eric Boehm, a reporter at Reason. Great piece at Reason.com today. And the president is frustrated, but he's frustrated because things aren't getting done. Projects aren't being started. He can't have any photo ops. But the reason they can't is because the stuff he included in the bill. That's why you got to read the bill before you pass it. We'll step aside for one last break. More Inside Sources coming up next on KSL News Radio.
When my mom was still alive, we didn't know she was going to get sick the next year, but she insisted that we all sit around the Christmas tree and reminisce about our favorite Christmases.
That's beautiful. A Christmas memory from KSL News Radio.
We take a gift to the homeless shelter. A couple walks in, she's pregnant, getting ready to have a baby, and they have 2 kids, and we were able to get them their gifts. It was a Christmas story like none other.
Merry Christmas from Andy, Steve, and the KSL Movie Show at KSL News Radio.
Hey, as you wrap up your financial year and as you get ready to project forward into 2024, nothing's better than starting out from a position of strength. And our friends at Hercules Credit Union have been about growing stronger together since 1946. They've been at this a long time. They know what it takes for you to be stronger financially. And right now, while a lot of people during the holidays are telling you that you're special, Hercules Credit Union is showing that you're special with actions. We love that, practical, tactical stuff. And right now, when you open a new checking account at Hercules Credit Union, you're going to be upgraded to a free Premier checking account. A free Premier checking account, no monthly fees. Plus, you get all the perks and benefits that go along with it: identity theft protection, travel benefits, cellular care coverage, and much, much more. So go in today, open a new checking account at Hercules Credit Union. You'll be upgraded to premium checking status for free. And you can find their locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, Riverton, and Salt Lake City. Or as always, with our friends at Hercules Credit Union, you can find them online at herculescu.com.
Where the steepest terrain meets the deepest snow. Snowbird is for the dedicated, those who seek a mountain experience beyond the greens, blues, and black diamonds. Averaging 500 inches of dry and light powder, unmatched steeps, and endless acres to explore. Snowbird is Utah's top powder getaway. Now with a Snowbird and Save lodging discount, receive 20% off on lift tickets, rentals, fast tracks, and more. When you stay slopeside at Snowbird, elevate your adventure with next-level lodging and skiing this season by visiting Snowbird.com.
In 400 AD, a forgotten time in ancient America, warrior prophet Moroni must preserve the history of his fallen nation while being hunted by a ruthless tyrant.
Where is the brave general now?
From Freestyle Releasing and Great Scott Entertainment comes
The memory of my God,
The Oath.
my faith and my freedom, my wife and my son.
The Oath, now playing in theaters. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. More information is available at oathmovie.com.
A holiday message from Jackson Hewitt.
'Twas the yikes before Christmas when all through the house not a creature was stirring, except Larry. See, the stockings weren't hung by the chimney with care, 'cause Larry's wallet was empty with no time to spare. So he went to Jackson Hewitt for a holiday loan, got money so fast he rejoiced and went home. Avoid the yikes before Christmas. Go to Jackson Hewitt before it's too late. Get up to $1,000 fast, minus the wait.
Early refund advance offered to eligible clients. Application required. Finance charge applies. Loans by Republic Bank. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
Jeff Kaplan here for my good friends at Advanced Window Products. Jake Weber and Nate Orchard are spreading the holiday cheer with their biggest sale of the year. If the wind whistles through your windows, if you want a fresh new look for your number one investment, your home, call Advanced Window Products and take advantage of this incredible end-of-year sale. Replace all of your windows and frames and you get $2,500 off. But that's not all. You get a free premium glass upgrade. Insulate your home against the cold with double pane windows and stylish frames, any style, any color, and they're built custom right here at their headquarters in Salt Lake City for 37 years. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. Plus, an additional $2,500 off and a free premium glass upgrade. You can save now, pay later, so take advantage. Call now, Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or visit advancedwindowsusa.com.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and if you have a drain that's clogged or backed up, after you've tried the plungers and products, the next step usually involves some kind of drain snake or cabling equipment. You see, sometimes the blockage is far enough down the line that you need special equipment that most homeowners just don't have. That's where the Drains Department at Any Hour Services can help. A drain snake can clear most blockages and get the water flowing again, and clearing blocked drains is what our Drains Department does day in and day out. So if you're a homeowner with a drain line that's clogged or backed up and you'd like one of our drain technicians to come and snake the line for you, it's only $29. Yep, you heard that right. Any Hour Services will snake any drain line with normal access for only $29. Sinks, showers, tubs, toilets, floor drains, laundry drains, even that sewer main line that connects to the city. We'll snake any line for just $29. For help with your drain issues, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7700. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, lots of people are getting norovirus this Christmas season, and state health officials say nobody who has it doubts whether they're sick. Second, job growth in Utah continues strong over the past year. Third, the U.S. Supreme Court has decided not to jump into some of the legal issues surrounding the election interference case against former President Trump. That could slow down the overall prosecution by months. Right now, 52 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City, and back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It is great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the week and as we head into the Christmas weekend, we hope you're getting all of your things done. I hope you stay with KSL News Radio throughout the weekend for all the latest as things continue to move along on so many different fronts, locally, nationally, internationally. KSL's got you covered, and we'll keep you in the right space with up-to-the-minute news there. And especially as you're heading home today, make sure you stick with our good friend Jeff Kaplan, who will get you home safe, secure, and even a little bit smarter, because that's what Jeff does every day on this station. And as we round out our program today, we've had such extraordinary conversations today, and if you missed any of those, make sure you go check out the podcasts at KSL Podcasts. Just go to Inside Sources. You can pick and choose any of the segments that you like. But in particular, I'd focus you on Professor Najeeba Saeed, who joined us for just an amazing, enlightening. My head's still spinning from some of the principles that she shared, that in this time of clenched fists, anger, fear, frustration that we see in so many places and spaces, that the way to get around that, to get beyond that, is with an open hand, with an open heart. With good questions and great listening, being present, trying to be connected and interconnected in our communities and in our relationships, and that we don't always have to agree, but we can have a different kind of conversation in our communities. And it's one of the things, as I've been thinking about all of our conversations that we have every day on this show, we get to this whole idea, and I think Tocqueville got it right in his introduction to Democracy in America. He always talked about the idea that the power of the American experience was found in the ways the citizens came together, that they linked arms and joined together in free association. And Tocqueville said that, look, that is the most powerful force for good on the planet. Nothing will lift more people. No one will help more people out of poverty. Nothing is more ennobling and more enlightening than citizens from every economic class and every belief system to come together, not through coercion of government, not because we have to, but because we choose to, through that cooperation, through goodwill. One of my favorite quotes from Margaret Mead is, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And so as we roll into this Christmas weekend and this holiday season, I am forever grateful for those in our community and all across the country who choose to link and lock arms, who choose to be in the fingerprint business, to just get things done that make a difference for people. We talked yesterday with Joseph Grenny from the Other Side Academy and the Other Side Village, and talking about some of the great things they're doing to lift, inspire, ennoble, empower those that have been in and out of the criminal justice system. But get this. Joseph was driving in his car and heard a commercial or heard an interview by another organization who was in need of some coats and some clothing for what they were trying to do through Christmas and the holiday season. And our good friends over at the Other Side Academy said, well, we have a thrift store. We'd like to donate to them. We can help. That's amazing to me, that this group of extraordinary individuals who've been in and out of the criminal justice system, who are now living together in a therapeutic community right here in Salt Lake City, and have turned their lives into lives of integrity and meaning and power, that their thought is, hey, we're doing well. We can help someone who's doing less well. They never would have thought that out on the street, or when they were doing drugs, or when they were in gangs or in and out of prison. But it shows you the transformational power of what happens when we link and lock arms, and we don't care who gets credit, and we're just focused on getting things done. It's that fingerprint business. And that's the challenge for everyone as we roll into this Christmas weekend. Put your fingerprints in a few places. Make a difference anonymously, quietly, And that's where the real power of this country, and it's where the real power of this community is, and it's also where the real power of this show is. And today we're going to bid farewell to Bella Pinnock, who is the master of the fingerprint business and the ultimate link to this show, to our guests, to principals, to news, to everything that goes on. And she has been a driving force for Inside Sources, and we wish Bella all the best as she continues to be an important link in our community in the roles that she has ahead. And to all of us and to everyone out there, it's time to link and lock arms and do it just a little bit better. Well, that wraps it up for us on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. I am Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us today. And as always, as